People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.
Hello. Why is that on the loop? Oh, live. We love this. Is it going to loop again? Oh, I don't know what it is. Right, let's take that off. Good evening, good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm here. I'm Abs of October Red. I'm joined by Matchroom CEO Frank Smith, who has been a very, very hard man to pin down. We had a date yesterday, Frank. I was all over the socials. People were writing questions that they wanted to ask, and it was like, oh, you left me hanging.
I got stuck in a meeting and it dragged on for a long, long time. And I would rather have been doing an interview than the meeting I was in, if that makes you feel better.
It
so
does.
I do apologise.
Don't worry about it. Better late than never. I know you're out there in the States. There is so much to go through. And I think with everything that's been going on this week, I think a lot of stuff has been drowned out regarding, obviously, the card, which is a world title fight. I think, is it super featherweight? We've got IBO, IBF.
WBO, IBF World Championship Unification, Sugar Nunez, Navarrete. He got in after a bit of a delay at the embassy in Mexico City. But he's here now. It's a big night. We're going to have close to 12,000 people in Phoenix on Saturday night. It's going to be one of the best atmospheres we've seen so far this year. So, yeah, big nights ahead.
Can I ask, why was everything left to like the last minute to do with like him getting into the country? And I know that obviously America's obviously really techy with visas and stuff, but why was like everything like last minute panic?
They lost his passport.
Oh,
they literally lost his passport in the embassy. So it took a period of time for the passport to be found. Look, visas are a lot more difficult than people think, especially in the US now. They've become a lot stricter. The process takes longer. Actually, when you announce a fight and it's 10 weeks or so, that's not a huge amount of time to get a visa, for those types of visas that they require. Had they not have lost the passport, he would have been all right. But they lost it. But eventually they found it, and we got a private jet from Mexico City into Phoenix yesterday. So he arrived, he did the face-off, he's ready to go. Everything's good. Not ideal, but it's part and parcel.
I tell you what, it's just literally non-stop. I was looking at obviously all the dates that you've got coming up as well, because obviously you're over in the States at the moment. But you've got Lidard, and you're doing another double one again, where you've got two fights on the same night in different countries. Why do you guys like to do that? Do you like us to have like a double evening of boxing? Do you and Eddie like to split up and go your separate ways? Why do you do that to us?
It's just when you look through the schedule and dates in the UK, we're doing 30 plus shows a year, probably 36 shows a year. So it's trying to fit those in over a period of time. That's the difficulty. So sometimes we're going to clash on dates. And it is what it is. Ultimately, DAZN's obviously a global platform. The focus of the US show is very much the US market, of course. Same for the UK. We try not to. We'd rather not, but we have the capabilities if we have to. It gets Eddie and myself away from each other.
Yeah, fair enough. Could it? Well, I suppose you could. Have you ever gambled or thought about doing one on a Friday and then another one on a Saturday, or would you rather just pack it in on the same night?
Rather pack it in, to be honest. We prefer as much as we can to do shows on Saturday, as much as we can but it's also very difficult with the time frames of dates, trying to get venues. It's not an easy process. And also you've got a whole host of other promoters on DAZN as well. So, you're sort of working around a whole schedule of different promoters, venues, and boxing, like I say, is a very much last minute sport compared to concerts, comedians, events that go on in all these venues.
Yeah, because they're booking up like a year in advance.
2 years in advance.
Yeah. I've had some questions that were typed in our yesterday's live that never happened. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Liam has asked, he's going on about the Australian stuff. He was asking any new Australian signings, and he's mentioned 3 names. So this is from Liam. He's mentioned Matteo Tapia, Dylan Biggs, and John. I think is it Manu?
Yeah.
Any names that sound familiar with you?
I've heard of all of those names. Yeah. I mean, we are working on new signings. We've got 7 shows a year now with Fox, obviously part of the DAZN group, but 7 shows a year in Australia now. And we're working through new signings. We've got a number of Australian fighters already. Our first show will be announced very soon, hopefully in the next week. And excited about what the future holds there. You know, it's a big market we believe can be very successful. It already is successful in boxing. But yeah, we're excited to get started.
Also from Marek, this is also from yesterday's. Ask any news or any fight news, and are these still your fighters? Lenia Paro and Justice Honey.
Yes, we're working through. Actually, we had some discussions on both of them yesterday, working through what's next. We did try and make a Lenia fight for January time, but it wasn't ready. So as soon as there's news there, we'll update. And Justice, we're working through what's next.
Okay, fair enough. Guys in the chat, welcome to all of you this evening. Thank you very much for joining us in our postponed live. But like I said, it's better late than never. Frank, so much has happened. I saw you Wednesday, and like I was grateful to be invited to the red carpet event where you announced, that you were signing extra deal with DAZN, a continuation to 2031 at this time. So that's that 5-year extension. It was a really great evening, good vibe to it. A lot of the fighters were there. We got to speak to them. We got to speak to you. And all of a sudden we get the news about Conor Benn. I do appreciate you've done 680,000 interviews on this. I really do appreciate that. There's a couple of things that I want to pick apart because you're quite frank, as it were. You're quite open, you're quite honest, and you say what you think. You're very black and white, and I like that. There's a lot of things that have come out of it, but what was strange, Frank, and where I want to, because this whole thing kind of stems from this, we spoke about obviously Riyadh season, getting involved with all of you promoters, and I said, learning the tricks of the trade, and then all of a sudden going over to Zuffa, and I said, I was like, are you happy with that? I don't know if I had a spidey sense, a sixth sense, because I promise you I didn't know anything. But then Conor, after how many years, I was there when he was supposed to fight Chris Eubank Jr. the first time. I saw the palaver that happened with it. TalkSport got reeked in hundreds and thousands of views from that very topic, with Eddie Hearn going on there backing him. How has this even come about is my question.
It's money, ultimately. And I don't think, look, I think there's a lot been made of it. And every interview I've done, again, the black and white, view, like you said there, of straight to the point. Yeah. I don't think anyone's questioned in any interview or any suggestion the money element to it and the deal that was there. All the questions were the way it was gone about, and if he would have called and said, look, I've got to have a conversation, but he didn't do that. And there's people around him who, obviously are sort of leading, the way things are done. And they, the person I'm talking to really is Keith Connolly, haven't seen or been around the process of the last 10 years and what we've been through collectively as a group. No one's questioning fighters making money, and I've seen also, seen people talking about comparisons. Fighters come and go. That's going to continue to happen. Fighters will leave Zuffa in time and join another promoter. Fighters will leave Queensbury, Matchroom, Boxer, like all of these different promotional companies. Correct. That will continue to happen, right? That's the reality of life. I think the difference is it's very hard to compare this situation to any other, because of what we've been through, and I think that's really a standalone. The Conor Benn relationship with Matchroom is a complete standalone to any other relationship over the last, because of what happened. Everything that had happened, all of the investment, time, energy, etc., etc., etc. Like there's no point going over it, but it is different. It's different to a fighter leaving after 3 years or 2 years. Do you know what I mean? It's a different, completely different animal. But like I've said, it is what it is, and on we move. Because if we spend too much time going over old ground, we're not going to focus on what makes us what we are. So, let's keep moving forward. And people saying, would you work with him again? Boxing's a crazy sport. Anything's possible, but it changes the relationship. because then it becomes transactional, purely transactional, and we will do what makes sense for us as a business. And like he's done here, he will do but that's fine, you know, and that will always be fine. But again, there is a way to process these situations and deal with them, I believe. And again, I said in my interview the other day, I may be wrong. If you judge everyone else on the way you would do things, that's the wrong approach to it, you know? And you just have to understand that everyone's different and going to handle things in different ways.
One of the alarming things, and forgive me if you think, why is this alarming? It's the interview that Eddie did with IFL, the late night interview when the news broke, everyone was waiting for it. And Eddie intimated the fact of the closeness of your relationship, that he wasn't bound into a contract, which I know I've got this picture in my head. You guys have got your fighters not nailed to a cross, as it were, but the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, everything's there, everything's succinct, there's no overlap. When somebody's coming up to like 6 months before the due, you start to renegotiate. Are they for us? Are we for them? Etc. etc. So I think the most alarming part of that interview for me was hearing that he wasn't necessarily in contract. How does that even happen? Why did that happen?
It was probably a mistake. Let's be honest. Like, people make mistakes, and you know, maybe the view was that the relationship was bigger than the contract. But that's the reality of it, you know. And again, you live and you learn. You can't spend too much time going, "Oh, shit, it's happened." You know, I do disagree with the view that a lot of people have taken, that we don't have relationships with fighters. I think we're very different. I have very good relationships, and Eddie has relationships, and different members of our team have close relationships with the fighters that are more personable than just commercial relationships, right? I was playing FIFA in Leo Tang's room at 2:00 the other morning. There was loads of us in there, so you know, but like, it's more than just a bond of, like, money is money, and we, of course, as a business, have to make money, otherwise we wouldn't be it. Every business is the same, you know. It's not like boxing's just this wild thing where it's just you go and do it because it's nice, you know. We want to make money, yes, of course we do, but we have a real relationship with fighters, you know. So I disagree. That's one thing I disagree with. As cold as I can be and emotionless and straight to the point, it doesn't take away from the fact I will do what's right for people, because you build a relationship with someone, you know. So I disagree with that standpoint. We made a mistake. We should have contracted him. Again, you live and you learn, and you go from there, and you go, right, can never let that happen again.
I can personally speak from being at a lot of the press conference, being at these social events that you've invited the media to. I can say that I do see that you are, you know, close with some of the fighters as well. It's not, you know, that cold. It's not that distant.
It's all different, by the way. Like, some people, like I'm close with some. Eddie's close with others. You know, Tom Dallas is close with some. Kevin Rooney's close with some. You know, it's all different, because you can't. There's only so many people you can have like that close of relationship to, because there's only so much time in a day, of course. But that's the point of having a team of people that are respected and liked as well. So, but that is something that's important to me, because I think that's the big difference between what you've got with someone like us and other promoters, by the way, and someone like a Zuffa, because Zuffa is quite cutthroat. It's a big commercial organization, TKO, that is just driven solely by numbers. And again, we all want to make money. I think they've got tremendous business. I'm not putting it down, but it's not fighter relationship led, in my opinion. If you compare and look at the way they deal with the UFC fighters as an example.
How the market is now, do you think it does need to be like a promoter and a fighter relationship, or can, you know, everyone, the whole world is driven by numbers, Frank? It's like we almost forget that we're actually human. We look at someone's profile and look at the numbers before we actually look at the person. Do you think that is going to potentially change even with Matchroom because of this? Because of things like this, you just can't afford for anything like that to happen again.
I think you can still have relationship. I think you can. Look, we're all our own. You know, there's some people I trust implicitly in this sport.
Yeah.
right? And it wouldn't matter whether I had it on a piece of paper or not. I trust their word implicitly, you know. And there's others that I go, could they fuck you? Yes. You know, and there's others that I just don't trust whatsoever, and it's in a contract and it's a deal that makes sense. Like, but that's the same in all walks of life. And that's the same in both business and personal life. There's a group of people that you go, oh, he's all right to spend time around, but I wouldn't trust him. You know, it's the same. That's life, isn't it? So I don't think it probably changes things in a sense of everything has to be like years ago. We didn't used to have contracts.
Didn't you?
But it was with a lot. I'm talking many years ago. It was a different world, you know, because it was like our word is our bond. And if you ask anyone in the business as well, if I tell you I'm going to do something, right, whether it's verbal or on a WhatsApp, like you don't need a contract. Like that's from me. But again, not everyone. I like the idea of contracts because it makes things clear, you know, and there's no question marks.
No.
But if I say to you I'm going to do something, I will do it. I would never go, whoa, I know I said that. Like, I've put myself in positions before where it hasn't really been a great position for me, but I've done it because I've said it. You know? So, but look, everyone's different. Everything's different. Everything has to be judged on its own merit. And yeah, it's what makes it fun.
Are you going to tighten up now with all fighters? Are you really going to start to tighten? Because to me, and this is just my personal opinion, I get where you guys are coming from, because I remember watching the interviews and I've seen the comments on the internet where you guys were getting absolutely slated for Benn, absolutely slated, and you stood your ground. You might not have agreed, say, for example, I think you went on the Piers Morgan show, so there was a little bit of a hoo-ha around that, but you still stood strong. So learning from that experience, like you just, from how I see it, Frank, you just can't have any friends in business. It's like, yeah, I'm cool with you, but you better sign there because I don't trust you. Or is that just me?
I don't know. I don't think you can let it change you. You know, like as soon as you let things change you as a person, it can change the form, you know, the formal side of it, right? Where yes, everything's stopped, but it shouldn't let it change you and take all emotion out of decisions with people, you know, because you still want what makes you what you are. Like, I think what makes us what we are is we do care about fighters, you know, and that cannot change just because this situation's happened, you know.
I'm going to touch on your best mate in boxing, which it's not me. It's Ben Shalom. I posted yesterday on my socials. I saw him flash up. And to be fair, I did a live after the news with like Conor Benn. I did a live. It's like, what's going on? Thought it was a joke. Thought it was AI, all the rest of it. I spoke about the Dear John letter. And I said, I bet you any money, Ben Shalom is going to be laughing his head off, because he would be. Why wouldn't he be? And then he went on to TalkSport yesterday and he mentioned a few things. And one of the things that I found which could be quite damning is the fact that he mentioned that you potentially interfered with the contract or the agreement that they had in place with Ben Whittaker. It's almost like, how can they get upset about Conor Benn leaving when obviously, you know, well, look what happens with Ben Whittaker. And secondly, how can Frank Smith, who he said he doesn't even like to mention your name, how can you talk about loyalty when you sided with Conor over your own brother-in-law, which was personal?
Yeah, I mean, look, on the first point, categorically, we didn't interfere with Ben Whittaker's contract. If he wants to throw claims around like that, good luck to him. You know, we didn't. He was a free agent. I think also, as I've said, every decision has to be based on its own merit, right? Our relationship with Conor was built over 10 years. And I don't think it can be aligned. And I actually saw Spencer Oliver said this as well. It can't be compared to any other. This is my opinion in terms of what we've been through. So, and I think that with every relationship, no one knows, you know, than you and the other person as to what exactly has happened, you know, in terms of what you've been through, etc. No one knows that. You know, the internet, there's a lot of talking, but only you know what you've been through and like how those times have been tough, etc. I don't think you can compare the Ben Whittaker thing to that. I'd said after the Ben Whitaker thing, I wasn't rubbing it in their face. I said, I don't think they did a good job for him. That's why he left. If they would have done a good job, he never would have left, right? You know, that's just my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right. That's my opinion. I'm allowed to have an opinion, just like he's allowed to have an opinion. And I don't feel you can compare the two, the Ben Whitaker situation and the Conor Benn. And like I said, fighters are going to continue to come and go from different promoters, right? This is just a one in a lifetime situation because of everything that happened that built up to this moment. And again, no one is questioning the decision to leave because of money. It's just the way it was gone about. Anyway, we move on from there. Fine. The piece around, for me, the family piece, there's talk about loyalty. Loyalty is built up between two people over a period of time, right? And my loyalty is with my missus, right? I would do anything for my missus. I love her to bits. I'm the softest person on that side that you could ever meet. I would do anything.
Emily Eubank, yes.
Yeah, I would do anything for my missus, right? Chris and I, no one knows our relationship, right? To judge it. Not one person outside of myself, Chris, Emily, and some, no one knows. So for someone else to sit there and say his loyalty should be to his brother-in-law, I've never had a relationship with my brother-in-law, right? He's never had a conversation with me. He's never sat down with me and gone, how are you today? Have you got a brother? Have you got a sister? What are you interested in? He's never had a conversation with me. I spent a lot of time around him, and I can sit and talk to anyone about anything. Talk to me about whatever you want, right? And I'll talk to you about it. I'm not arrogant. You have to play up to me. I'll be there and I can talk to anyone. I've done it for years. So I don't have a relationship with him like that. I don't have a relationship with him like that. Where I have loyalty to him because he has no loyalty to me. I don't expect anything from Chris Eubank Jr., right? I never have. Never asked him for anything in my life. And people can have their view on the internet of you did this, you did that. When the whole situation happened, I couldn't win, right? On one hand, I had the family side. On the other hand, I had my job. A job that I've been in since I was 14 years old, 16 years old. I couldn't win. So at that point, I really took myself out as much as I could because it didn't make sense to me. As I'm sure anyone would say, actually, doesn't really. I got deeply involved around the first fight that was supposed to happen when it came to Chris saying, I want X million to fight Conor Benn, right? When all this was going on. I was in Chris's room 2 days before that fight, or 3 days, something like that. I'm not going to say categorically, but 2 or 3 days. And I sat with him and he was saying, I want this to fight. And I said, look, it's not going to happen. So let's just leave it. Right. I was the one who walked out the room and went, let's just leave it. And I said, you can ask the people around him at the time. John Wishusen was a trusted family friend of them. I said, I'm delighted it's not happening personally, on a personal level, because I can't win. Right. So there's that. There's the situation there, and if he wanted to fight him, that's up to him. If he wanted 10 million quid to get in the ring against him, that's up to him. Didn't happen anyway, but that, he didn't have a problem with it. Right. So you judge me on that. Say, what did I do wrong in that situation? Nothing, in my opinion, but I will always answer every question. Beyond that, I then push so hard for the fight. And I don't think you'll find one person, right, outside of those two fighters that had more of an impact in that fight happening between those two guys, right? From the negotiation of the first time round, making the fight, to then the next two fights, I pushed, and it was the best thing for both of those guys' careers. Chris made 4 times as much money as he's ever made in his career, right? Life-changing amounts of money. He was very successful before that, but, so I did what was right for the client I represent, and Chris got what was right for him, got a load of money. Right, so in there, what did I do wrong? I never picked a side. I never, obviously had a side to pick in terms of I have my job. I never in an interview went, Conor Benn is going to go and knock Chris Eubank's head off, did I? I never said Conor Benn is going to beat Chris Eubank. No, I didn't say anything. So please, and I would sit and answer every question someone could come up with, because I know I'm right in my own mind as to what I did in that whole situation. And like I say, Chris owes me nothing, owes me no loyalty. I don't expect anything from Chris. Never asked Chris for anything. On the flip side, I owe Chris nothing. I would never do anything to put, I would never do anything wrong to him. But I would sit and answer every single question someone asked me with true honesty and a good feeling in my heart that I always did the right things. Again, people can have an opinion on that, whether, no, they disagree. Fine. That's their opinion. I know I did the right things. So cool. Let people say what they want about me. But no one knows outside of me, whether I did wrong or right. And I'm the kind of person, if I'm wrong, I'll go, I'm wrong. And I'm the kind of person that would sit there. If Chris had a conversation with me, I'd sit and talk to him. He's never done that. Chris, in the last 2.5 years, has never said, let's have a conversation about this. And I think that with a lot of people are manly enough to go out there and make a big song and a dance of it, but can't sit and have an honest conversation. Right. And I will do that with anyone. I would always do that with anyone. So for Ben to come out and say about loyalty with my brother-in-law, he doesn't have a clue. I know things about Ben that would end him, right? And I'd never say it because it wouldn't be right of me to say it because of the people I bring in to say it. A lot of people know about it as well. He knows what I know about him because I'm not a liar. I've said it to his face. And I'd end his career with it. But I'm not going to say it because because I don't think it's right. And people think I'm jealous, this, that, I'm not jealous of him. I don't have a jealous bone in my body. No, that's not the character I am. So again, it's easy for people on the outset to have a view and say things without knowing the facts. And we're all guilty of it, by the way. I'm sure I'm guilty of seeing something on the internet and making a judgment without any detail around it. But like I say, I will sit there and answer any question anyone ever had because I know I don't lie. So it's easy. And you might not agree with what I say, but I'll be honest about it.
And that, I can't argue with that. Frank, let me go to the chat because people have been putting questions in here and I'm not ignoring them intentionally. Right, here we go. Toby Ringirl Bartlett. He loves you, Ringirls, by the way. Toby Bartlett is one of your Matchroom fans. He said, this is going to be very interesting. Straight talking with Frank Smith and Abs. Can't wait for this one. Hakan says, good evening or good morning to you. Hi, both. Hope you're well. Felix Cash still with Matchroom? And this is from Mark. Is Felix Cash still with Matchroom? And if so, do you have any plans for him?
He doesn't have any fights with us. I still have a good relationship with him. I think he came to the office about 2 or 3 months ago and said, look, if anything ever comes up that makes sense, of course, we'll look at it. But no fights currently.
Okay. Mark goes on to say, is there any more news on this Belgium card, which Eddie was talking about? And do you think you'll return to Ghana this year?
Eddie's head of Belgian boxing, so I'll let him release that. Ghana, we're in discussions right now. I think we're just working through it. We'll definitely return. We're just working through a bit more detail on it right now because, again, it's one of those things that has to fit within the overall schedule. And we got a big team of staff that are working on so many different things. So it just needs to align with the dates. But I'm very confident we'll be back there with the legacy team creating another magical night.
Oh, here we go. We've got the signature 7585. I love stuff like this. Frank, my 12-year-old son has started a hair brand called Serpent. Could he send Eddie some freebies via you?
Yeah,
That's
send
nice.
it to our office. Oh, what are you trying to say? It won't work for me. Send it to our office.
Yeah, Chili Beef says, I always enjoy these lives with you two, and we enjoy you guys listening as well. Hakan goes on to say, is Elif Nur Turhan homecoming in Istanbul planned for May or June?
I'm not sure about the exact date, but there is plans for a homecoming. Eddie was obviously in Turkey a week or two ago now.
Yeah.
And that's the aim, is to do that. And yeah, like with everything, our focus as well is global growth of the sport. And we're very excited about trying to make something work there.
Right, Technique 539 says, and we're going to touch on this as well. It's going to be the final topic. Is the boxing on DAZN? And did you hear that Zuffa is signing potentially with Sky Sports?
Is the boxing on DAZN? What boxing?
I think don't know, because I don't know where we were in that conversation. What about the Zuffer with Sky?
I've heard the rumours. Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously they've got a show coming up with MVP on April 5th. They will definitely have intent to stay in boxing in some way. So yeah, look, it'll be interesting. I think it's a lot of fun, the whole thing right now. You know, it adds a bit of adds a bit of excitement to the game. You know, with people, these operators who are brilliant operators. But we're in a great place, and yeah, I'm excited about what the future holds. And yeah, good luck.
Somebody's giving you a nice compliment here. Just Meister, 1976, born a year before me. Because shush, Frank, make a brew and sweep the floor. It's not very nice, is
Oh, thank you, mate. I'll get on to that now.
it? In your maid's outfit. 68 DG, thank you very much for the super chat. Boxing needs to come together like the Avengers to defeat Turkey and mouthpiece Dana. It's a fight we traditional boxing fans can win. I love that support. What do you think of that, Frank?
Yeah, but look, we continue to have a relationship, obviously, with Turkey Al Sheikh and Riyadh Season and Sela, you know, and doing great fights there. The Zuffa piece, look, I think competition is great, and I don't think Zuffa is ever going to take over from traditional boxing. You know, I don't think what they did in UFC is gonna be possible in boxing, and we're excited about what's ahead. You know, and I think competition is always good. You know, investment in a sport is always good. You know, and it doesn't mean they can't stand, you know, alongside each other. You know, it doesn't take away from what we're doing. It's gonna be a fun few years.
Competition is good, and I do agree with you with that, Frank. But as we've seen in the reports recently, Frank Warren now has, you know, said that, you know, there's potentially some contract breaches, you know, what's been reported, and he's actually now in the process of potential lawsuit against Sela. I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, look, it's difficult for us to speak on it, or me to speak on it, because I don't know the facts. You know, even Frank was limited in his comment, I think, in some of his interviews. That process will play out, whatever that process is. You know, so, and I'm sure both sides will have their view, as with anything, you know, and it's not for me to pick sides. Obviously, both sides will. We have a great relationship with Frank now and Queensbury. We have a very good relationship with Riyadh Season, Turkey Al Sheikh still, you know, but you know that's a process that will play out between those guys. It's hard to say much more than that, in truth, because I have no clue about it.
Well, when you think about, I know we don't know the details, but potentially, if Frank has got obviously a live case, a case that's worthy of going to court, potentially going to court, is there potentially a knock-on effect? If there's a blueprint, say, for example, Frank's got a complaint, don't know if it's to do with contracts, we don't know the ins and outs, but is there a potential that Matchroom could then potentially be following suit because there's a bit of a pattern with the fighters? Say, for example, if your fighters start, I don't know, disappearing and going off to Zuffa, fair enough, they've got Jai Pattaya, they've got Conor Benn. We noticed that obviously Tyson Fury is fighting on the Netflix and Ring magazine. You know, is there a potential undercurrent there that could have a knock-on effect and end up with yourselves?
I mean, look, every situation, every scenario, and it's will have its own, like I said again, its own merits. Like, you know, if we've got fighters that anyone else is trying to take who are under a contract, then that's obviously going to cause issues. You know, but yeah, but we will in the next few days hopefully get everything together with BAM, and you know, we obviously, as we spoke about before, match the proposal. You know, so look, it's again, you're talking about hypothetical, like we don't know what we're talking about, really. You know, so it's a crazy business. There's always been, boxing's always been a mess. It's not going to change, is it?
No, it isn't. Let me jump back in this chat before I let you go, Frank. Can we expect to see Matchroom having Katie Taylor's last ever fight in Dublin?
We're working on it now. She would love to do Croke Park. I would love to do Croke Park. I love putting on big events. But we would, you know, it has to make sense for her as well, commercially. because ultimately, if the commercials don't stack up for her in terms of the fight because of the costs of things, then it doesn't make. It's not just Matchroom; it doesn't make sense for. It's for Katie herself as well. So we're working through that now. We're in discussions, and yeah, it would be a big night.
Frank, how involved is Matchroom in Fury versus Makhmedov, since they themselves are usually involved in ring shows? That's a good question, Jack.
Not at all. Not at all. We have a relationship with Makhmedov from his obviously from the Dave Allen fight, but in the event itself, not at all. I've got a great relationship with the team who operate it, and the seller team. But no.
Fair enough. Let's have a look. Somebody's asked, what's your gym split? Surely you have been on the weights. I think somebody's obviously watching your Instagram stories where you've been doing some weights in the gym.
I've been training twice a day. I do an hour of cardio and an hour of weights a day.
Fair enough.
Training for my Misfits debut.
Yeah. Against who?
Whatever pays the most money.
I like it. Ikram San, thank you very much for your 35 ZAR. I'm not good with currency. Frank, maybe you can tell me how much that is. We need a sequel called Frank Smith selling punnets of strawberries in Hull. Comments are so random, but I'm going to read that out.
I'm not quite the strawberry salesman as my gaffer.
There you go. Chili beef, and that's the last one I'm going to do. Did you make peace with Simon Jordan off the camera? What happened with Simon Jordan?
No, I mean, I've got to be honest. The last few times I've been around him and spoken to him, we've been okay. Look, I'll be honest with you. I only ever responded to things people would say, and look, we're in a business where, because of not so much you, but certain people say things, and then it causes a friction, and you respond, and then it goes back and forward, and he goes, "Oh, he's a T-boy, I don't care." And then I'll respond, he'll respond, I'll respond, he'll respond. The last couple of times I've been around Simon have been very pleasant. I did the podcast with Simon. I was on their show the other day. It's been fine. And I've always said, we're not going to agree. Just like not everyone has to agree, and like he is very good at what he does. He's brilliant at what he does because everyone talks about him. And everyone talks about the things he brings up. So like, well done. But yeah, it seems okay.
So final one for me. Listen, guys, thank you very much for putting your comments and questions in the chat. Apologies if I didn't get to go through all of them. This man's time is very precious. Frank, I know this is absolutely absurd, and you can tell me to literally jump off a cliff if you want.
Wouldn't say that.
Well, you know what I mean. Would you ever entertain if I did a live with you and the other guest being Ben Shalom? Would you ever do that?
No problem.
Would you? Of
course.
Okay. I'm going to try. Listen, I've been trying to contact Ben, but he ignores me. Sometimes he replies, sometimes he doesn't.
Look, the funny thing is with, we will never shy away from a question. Any question. I've never said to anyone in my life, don't ask me that, don't ask me this, don't ask me that. I've always answered every question, right?
Yeah,
and a lot of people in this business pop up when there's things that are good for them to come up. Like yesterday, Ben came out. I mean, what's it got to do with him?
He was loving that word.
He's got one show left on the BBC. He's going to end up being a pundit maybe on TalkSport, if he carries on the way he's going. But he pops up. He goes missing when things aren't going well for him, and then pops up when he can, say things that, gets people going. So, but I'm always here. Good times, bad times, I'm always here answering your questions.
Frank, did you just say he's got one show left on the BBC? Yeah,
well, that's all. He had a 4-fight deal, didn't he? So that's coming up in April.
Okay, I'm gonna try and get him on. But listen, Frank, I appreciate your time so much. I will see you when you're back in the UK. Look after yourselves. Stay safe. All the good stuff. Thank you to all the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, au revoir. Frank, thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Good to chat.
Always. And I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Yes.
People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.